American is proud to present Insights on Leadership and Life with your host, Roberta Pickett.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Insights on Leadership and Life. I'm your host, Roberta Pickett. I'm a leadership and life coach who works with individuals and organizations to achieve success and fulfillment and joy in their lives. So we are glad to have you back, and this evening our topic is going to be about our kids and our future. You know, it's on Sunday, it's Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, that got me to thinking about my kids and my grandkids, and I have a grandkid coming, another one. So I thought about how amazing for me giving birth was. And raising the kids was a little more brutal, a little more chaotic. There are those moments you pull your hair out. But overall, you know, it's always worth it. And yet, as you think about it, you realize there are a lot of kids for whom birth isn't such a joyful process, or they don't grow up in an environment that's fully supportive, or it may be supportive, but maybe there are other factors that make their life difficult. And so I realized how blessed I've been, but it also made me realize what a great topic for now to talk about our kids and our future, and what that means to us here in our community in Amador County as well as around the world. So with me tonight, I have three experts on kids, three experts, and three people who understand what it means to be involved in the system that cares for those kids who maybe don't have a perfect life getting started. So on my right is Ruthella Turner. Ruthella's with the Upcountry Community Center in Pine Grove, and a mom, and a foster mom as well, right? And on my left is Naomi Grimes, and Naomi's a manager with the Arcos Storage in Pioneer, right? And you are a mom of twins. As well as, it's my understanding, you grew up in foster care. So you have some stories to tell too. And definitely, I can't even say it. Last but not least, John Stettler. And John is in charge of the CASA program here in Amador County. And that stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. So I know you're going to tell us more about what that really means, and more about the program.
Sure.
And you're a dad as well, right?
As well.
Yeah, okay. Well, so welcome all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what we're going to do first is, I know I want to know a little bit more about your background, and I'm sure our audience does too. So if each of you could take maybe 3 or 4 minutes and just give us a little bit of history. You know, what's your background? Where'd you grow up? What are the things that you've been involved in, and what do you do? So you want to start, Ruthella?
Sure. I don't know if I could take up 3 or 4 minutes talking about myself, but I'll try.
We'll fill in the spaces.
Oh, good. I'll have long pauses.
No, don't worry about it.
I grew up in Petaluma.
Oh.
Yeah, and I just love that I'm not in Petaluma and I hear its name all the time. Just home. I met my husband in Sea Scouts, which is something that, as much as I love the mountains up here, I really feel like Sea Scouts is such a wonderful program. I wish we had that for our teenagers up here. It's a branch of the Boy Scouts, but it's specific to 14 to 18-year-olds. It's really on leadership, and of course it's focused on nautical, so the ocean.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so we still are connected with a lot of the kids that we did that group with. And our Sea Scout ship is still in effect, the Compass Rose in Petaluma. And we still go back and check in with everybody and our old skipper and family. So
how fun.
Yeah, that's how my husband and I met.
Great.
Sea Scouts. And then we moved up here after we had our first child, because we just couldn't afford to live in the Bay Area anymore. We had a tiny little condo. Every time we'd get a little raise, there would go the PG&E bill.
Right.
So we'd
or there went the rent or something. Yeah.
We actually, because we were really good at saving, we were able to buy our condo and we were able to sell it right when everything was going up in price. So we made quite a profit on it and own our house now. So I'm really push the kids, save your money, because that's how my husband and I bought at such a young age.
And it's such a lesson for all kids. Kids, save your money. Don't spend it. My dad used to say, learn to live on less than what you make.
Huge, great advice.
If you can learn to do it, it's good, yeah. So you moved up here.
Moved up here so I could, we could have a bigger house, be a stay-at-home mom for a while, have our kids. We had our second child, and started babysitting, and then I was working with the community center on the advisory council before it opened, and came to a meeting one day and they were hiring, and I was like, well, good, because I'm looking for a job. So got pulled in, and it just really feel like I fell into place with that job. It's really been an opportunity to grow, to work with my love of kids and learning and showcasing and showing all the different ways to help each other out, to really network.
Well, I think the community would agree you're the perfect person for that spot,
Well,
too.
thank you.
You've been great. So how did you get involved then with becoming a foster parent?
So when my youngest was about 2, we were really like, we want to be foster parents. I think everybody has a responsibility to improve the world around them in every way that they possibly can. Some people can give money, some people can give time. We have the ability to open our house to those who need a good, safe home and share that. And so we started that, and we were only going to do it for 2 years. We were only going to take on little ones, and since then it's 9 years later, and we loved having foster teens in our home, and that's so much fun.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know. I want to know more even about that, and we'll get to that more in the second segment. But how wonderful is that, and what a great commitment. I mean, you're really walking the talk when you're working with the community center. Yeah. So welcome again.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And Naomi, tell us about you.
Well, I grew up in the Contra Costa County area and became a state, foster child when I was age 1. The Contra Costa County area was Concord. My birth mother, unfortunately, had her challenges, and the police had found me in her apartment. They're not sure how many days I was there as a baby, but they were luckily, they found me and saved me and got me into foster care right away. And I was in that for 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and did really well as a child and enjoyed everything there was about life, even though I was probably in 18 to 19 different homes. But, I was always positive and did really well in school. My favorite thing to do in high school was swimming. So I was a swimmer since about age 8 or 9. I started swimming, and I really excelled in swim team, and did really well with acting classes at school and high school. It's one thing I love to do, because then I could pretend to be somebody I wasn't.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was easy. That was really fun, and I ended up actually in my last years of foster care in Pollock Pines. That's actually the reason why I came to this area, because I loved Pollock Pines so much. I loved the big trees and the pine trees, and so it came, most 17, 18-year-olds don't care too much for the mountains, but I fell in love.
Yeah, it's like there's nothing to do,
Yeah,
right?
no, but I loved it.
Yeah.
So when I was 18, I graduated from Placerville, high school in Placerville, and started on my life, and now I'm here in Pioneer. And I still visit over there in Pollock Pines and enjoy, like I said, being here in the mountains. I'm just not a city girl.
Well, like I said to Ruthella, there's so much more that we want to hear about, but we'll get back to that in a few minutes. So, John, how about you?
Well, I was raised on a farm up the highway before I-5, and left that area to go to college, and was fortunate enough to find a job after I got out of college. worked in a probation department for a number of years, and left that and went to work for myself as a private consultant on juvenile issues, mainly juvenile facilities. And I worked around the country advising people on juvenile facility related issues, how to build one, how to run one, how to plan for it, all the aspects of it. And it enabled me to go to all kinds of places and see all kinds of lifestyles and all kinds of ways of dealing with kids.
Yeah.
Some of it wasn't as pleasant as others of it was.
Yeah.
But it was an excellent experience for me to do that. And when I retired, we moved up here 6 years ago. And one of the first things I did, I said, I need to find some volunteer stuff. And I had known about the CASA program from before, but when I was involved in probation, it was strictly for the dependent children. And at that point, we no longer dealt with the dependent children and went to social service. So I really didn't know that much about it. And I said, well, I'm going to check into it, and I'll take the class.
Well, hold that thought, because I want to get into more of the detail about it, but we're going to get cut off if I don't stop you now. So hold that thought. We'll come back to it. We're going to take a short commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll get into some more of the details. And I think I'll start with you, John, so that you can finish the story, okay? So we'll be right back. Don't leave us. Back in a minute on Insights on Leadership in Life.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now back to Insights on Leadership in Life with your host, Roberta Pickett.
Welcome back to Insights on Leadership in Life. I'm your host, Roberta Pickett, and tonight's topic is on our kids, our future. And we have three guests this evening, John Stettler, Naomi Grimes, and Ruthella Turner here with us. And we sort of interrupted John as he was telling his story, so I'm going to come back to you, John. You were just saying you had moved up here 6 years ago, and the first thing you started looking for was some volunteer work. So what happened then?
So I saw that they had a CASA program here, and they were offering a training class. And I said to myself, well, I'll take the training class, just find out what it's all about. I don't want to do that, but I'm curious what it's all about. Well, I took the class. I've worked with 5 kids since then. After about 3 years of volunteer, they had an opening for a part-time staff position. And I said, well, I really don't want to do that, but I'll try for it anyway. And
I see a pattern here.
yeah. So I ended up getting the honor of taking the staff position, which I've had now for almost 3 years.
So it's court-appointed special advocates. Most of us don't know what that means. So can you explain that?
Thank you. What it means in a nutshell is that the judge in Seattle, about almost 40 years ago, decided that he was working with these children and these families in court, and he wasn't sure he was getting a whole picture. And he said, what would happen if I had an outside volunteer, not an agency person, not a professional person, what if I had an outside person who had some training to be able to deal with these children in these situations and could give me outside opinion at what they thought was good for the children and what the children needed. And from that, the program has grown across the country, and that's what we have. We have volunteers who are trained to be able to deal with the children and report to the court on how the children are doing and how their needs are being met.
How many kids do we have in the program in Amador County?
We have almost 30 children in the program now and almost that many volunteers.
That's wonderful. Well, it's not wonderful that we have kids in those situations, but it's wonderful that we have a program like that. My understanding is that not every county has one of these programs?
Not every county does, because the only way in which a CASA program can get referrals of children is through the juvenile court judge. And so the juvenile court judge has to support the program, has to encourage it, and has to make referrals to it. So those counties in which the judges have not yet come to the point where they can see how to make that work for them. They don't have the program, but almost all the counties do by this time.
And we have great judges here, right?
We have great judges here.
Yeah, we do. We really do.
People who aren't working in the system don't realize how difficult that assignment is and how much energy it takes and how much commitment it takes. And we've got two of the finest judges I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a number of judges over my career.
It's so good to hear that, but you also realize anything when you're working with kids in trouble of one sort or another, there's such an emotional energy around it. So I can only imagine what it's like.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I discovered that was pleasing to me, I knew from working with the delinquent kids years ago that many of those had had a history with the child welfare system and progressed up to being delinquents. And to be able to work with the kids in the CASA program, I think is an excellent way to try to short-stop that freight train going to the wrong direction.
So that's definitely one of the benefits then, is hopefully keeping them on the straight and narrow, so to speak, so they don't end up in delinquency of some sort.
Helping them get the resources that they need to be able to feel good enough about what they can do, that they can accomplish positive things in their life without a life of crime.
What are the requirements for someone to be a CASA volunteer?
Got to have a big heart for starters. Then you need to have some time to be able to work with the children. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but that's part of the match process. We offer a training program. We have one starting, as a matter of fact, for a little plug. Starting the week of July the 7th, we're going to start another training program for anybody who's interested. Give me a call and we'll be happy to talk about it. Do the training program. We do a very thorough background check because you're working with somebody else's children. And then we sit down and make a match. What do you work with the best? What kinds of situations do you think you'd work with? What kind of time limits do you have? Here are the cases that we have. Which ones do you think is going to fit your style the best? And then make a match that will be good for everybody. Everybody should win in this process. This isn't something where you need to go and get your beat across the side of the head all the time trying to help somebody. You need to feel like it's working for your advantage as well as the child's. And from that, we take off and try to do good.
That's really wonderful. It's a great program, and it's wonderful to know that we have so many good people around us who want to work with kids and help those who have tough situations.
We have some people who have just a little bit of time, and that's a good match with the child that they're working with. And we have other people who spend
lots of time,
untold hours, hundreds of hours with those children, drive them hundreds of miles to do activities of one kind or another. And that's a perfect match for them. And so you don't get at cross purposes with what you're capable of doing. But boy, those people have heart, every one of them.
Yeah. So what I hear is that obviously one of the goals is to keep them out of a life of crime. Another is to help them to see their own strengths and abilities and to start to develop those so that they can have a successful life. Are there other things that you see that how they benefit by being part of the program?
The system, and Naomi knows this, the system works its very best to help the kids. But if you have been in 18 foster homes and went to 11 different schools and had partial credits here and there, it's not a big surprise to end up being a junior in high school by age and a freshman by credits. And so
even if they're capable or whatever, all that change is totally disruptive.
There's an example of the things that the CASA volunteer can watch. Are they getting credit for the classworks they did? Are they getting the right classes? Are they in the right programs? And if you just take school as one example, then there's all the rest of the lifestyle experiences. If you look at all the adverse childhood experiences the children may have had, multidimensional now. How do you look at each one of those and make sure that positive things are available to help the children work through whatever those issues were? and develop all those protective factors, the things that give them resilience, that give them bounce back, that don't let them give up and say, oh, I can't do it, it's not going to work, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, nobody loves me, nobody ever going to love me, I might as well eat a worm.
I remember that song. So what do you think motivates the kids to, what is the most important factor that makes them feel that way, that they're capable, that they're valuable, that they've got worth?
Naomi can talk about her experience, but I believe that one of the most important things is they found somebody who believed in them, who sacrificed for them, who was willing to give time and energy for them and instill in them the notion that they could succeed, there were things that they could do well, and helped follow them through all the arduous twists and turns of life and not lose sight of that.
Wow. Now, so how do kids stay in the program for just a certain period of time? Is it how does that work?
They stay in the program as long as the children are under the jurisdiction of the juvenile court.
Okay.
And that used to be a maximum of age 18. Within the last few years, they've changed the program to be age 21. And the reason is obvious. If you had a child that was, I'm sorry, Naomi, but if somebody who's been in a lot of foster homes and changing a lot of schools, and you say, okay, you're 18 today, you're out of the program, you don't get any more support, you're an adult. They're not an adult. They're not ready to do that. Yeah. So it was
We're hardly adult at 21.
It was taking them to the end of the pier and then saying, now jump off and see if you can swim.
Yeah.
And they couldn't very well. And
I'm
so
glad
with
to
this
hear
extra
that.
3 years, they have another 3 years to be coached and guided and nurtured to be able to, at age 21, have a better chance of making some better adult-like decisions, because otherwise we have a history of homelessness, addiction, dropping out of school, all the things that you didn't want to have happen and hoped it wasn't going to happen, happened.
Yeah, all that
Almost
good work,
guaranteed
and
to
then
happen.
because the support structure suddenly is totally gone.
You didn't have the
Just
building
drops off.
blocks, you didn't have all the props to hold you up, everything, all the pins got kicked out from under you.
Tough situation. What was it? Was it your background in probation that led you to this, or was there something else that? Well, you said you had to have a big heart, so I imagine you have a big heart in there too. But is there anything else that drew you to the CASA program?
It was just the accumulation of my life experiences that I've worked with kids all my professional life in one capacity or another, in one form or another. And so when I got volunteering with kids, it was just a continuation of that. And I tried in probation to do things that would work for children. When I was consulting, I was trying to set up systems that would work better for children. So when I got into CASA, I said, this is another way that I can work and try to make some small effort to improve the life of children.
Yeah, it's that old story about the starfish, right? If they're all on the beach, you try to throw them back in the ocean. You may not save them all, but if you can save one, it makes a difference to that one. Yeah.
When I was in my little story, when I was in probation,
story.
I could count on one hand the number of kids that ever came back to me and said, I hated you at the time, but you did a good job for me. You did a good thing for me. So what I tell my volunteers when I'm training is, you keep your heart, you keep trying, because you will never know when you made a difference. You will never know what made a difference, but I can tell you that somewhere along the line, something you will have done will have made a difference.
And we will, on that thought, come right back in a few minutes with insights on leadership in life. Thank you.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. Come And now back to Insights on Leadership in Life with your host, Roberta Pickett.
Welcome back, everyone, to Insights on Leadership in Life. We appreciate you being here tonight. And it's a particularly poignant topic, I think, talking about our kids and our future. And especially kids who maybe don't have the best environment to grow up in initially. So to thank you, John Stettler, for sharing what you did about the CASA kids and about the CASA program. Yes, you are fired up about it. I can say that, very passionate, and thankfully so. We are, as a community, fortunate to have your passion and the passion of the other volunteers doing that. Another area that we really help our kids on all levels is at the Upcountry Community Center.
Yeah.
And we have you Upcountry, but there's also there's other programs down country in Jackson, the rest of the county. But tell us a little bit about the Upcountry Community Center.
Oh, thank you. Well, so we've got the Upcountry Community Center, the Comanche Lake Community Center, and the Ione Family Resource Center. So we're all sister centers.
And they're all part of ATCA?
We're all sister centers. We work together, staff works together to provide lots of different services. The centers were opened in 2003, Comanche and Upcountry, to bring a lot of the services that are concentrated in the center of the county out to the rural outlying areas. Big survey was done, and it was so surprising to find out, I'm being facetious, that a lot of the services are concentrated in the center of the county, and a lot of folks who need those services aren't.
Right.
They're in the outlying areas where rent's cheaper. It's farther from home for many different reasons. Some people like me don't want to be in town. We love the mountains. It's where we want to be. So the community centers are a place to be a hub for the community, a place to go and meet friends, have a play group, sit and exchange information, access computers and internet. So we provide some of those stopgap resources, services for folks.
Yeah, so you do, obviously you do programs for adults as well, but I want to focus just sort of more on just the kids services because that's our topic tonight. So you have an after-school program?
We do. We've got our Fit Kids program, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays. After school, 2:30 to 5:30. Kids come in. There's fitness, instruction, healthy habits, nutrition. The kids have a blast. We've got our after-school reading tutoring for students in grades kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And our goal is to get our students reading to proficient. So with our tutoring program, we're looking for volunteers who want to be dedicated volunteers to meet with their student twice a week for an hour each time. We train our volunteers. You don't have to have a teaching credential to be a tutor.
But there's some training, and then it's a minimum of 2 hours a week per
Minimum of
student.
2 hours per week with a 6-month commitment is what we ask for because we really want to see the difference in that child's reading level. So we do our
And
background
have the
check.
continuity, too, of the same person working with them, yeah.
It does really help. So our volunteers, and they're volunteers for this program, they do background check, we do training, we do weekly meetings to go over how to run the program. Every child in our program starts out book 1, lesson 1. It doesn't matter if they're a kindergartner or a third grader, and then they progress at their own pace. So it's a wonderful opportunity to make a difference in the life of a child without having to spend a lot of money. You're just investing your time.
Well, it also sounds like it's without making them feel badly about wherever they are in the process. It's
That's
just
a good point.
keep working, just start at the beginning, and if they're already further ahead, great, and if not, then they just start where they are and progress.
Absolutely.
good.
And when you're working in one-on-one small groups, which is very small, you're not in competition.
Yeah,
You don't have
that's
to
big.
worry that, oh my goodness, maybe I'm falling behind the other students.
Or
Because
maybe I pronounced that word wrong, and
Good
people are
point.
going to laugh at me or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all very positive, and we really encourage parent learning. We've got information topics, family nights, lots of...
And these programs are available to anybody, right? I mean, there's no restrictions.
There's no restrictions
That's
on...
cool.
You just need to fit are you kindergarten through third grade? Are you first through 8th grade for our Fit Kids program? And then we just make sure that you're going to fit our needs, or we're going to fit your needs.
Yeah. What do you have for the older kids?
The older kids, after junior high school, we really encourage our juniors and seniors to become volunteers, to become active in their community.
Nice. So to give back. Oh, very
Absolutely.
nice.
So we have quite a number of junior and seniors who are volunteer reading tutors. The kids will help out with our backpack to school project, our angel tree project. We always need people to come in and just mow the lawn.
Oh, and I love seeing the energy of the older kids working with the younger kids. It's always when whatever event it is, that to me, there's just something special that both sides gain
Oh,
so
yeah.
much from that. You have a program, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a training program. You mentioned earlier you love education, and furthering education is for yourself as well. But it's a program you offer life skill, something about the path of life or something.
Might be one of our classes we used to have. We had the independent living program, which is run through ATCA. I'm trying to think of
That's
one.
okay. It
So
was just
sorry.
something- That's okay. It sounded really interesting to me. So, ACCA really, or Upcountry Community Center really provides some additional resources for parents with their kids
Absolutely.
to, whether it's educational or social, or even, like you said, nutritional, health-wise, wellness.
We've got even our play groups where parents with children 5 and under come in and just sit and play with their children,
Yeah.
an opportunity to meet other parents, for the kids to interact with other kids, and for parents to play together with their children. And that's such a wonderful program. We kind of just step them along. And
What do you think the
different programs.
benefit I'll start with the kids. What's the benefit the kids get out of the programs that you offer?
I think the kids get to feel that people care, that there's a caring community for them. I think that's the biggest difference. The thing that's going to make the biggest difference is what kind of an attitude are we giving as adults to our children? Do we make children as a society, as a community, feel that they're an annoyance, that you need to be seen and not heard? Or do we value them? Do we respect that this is our future, that we're investing time into our future in our children, and we make our children feel valued? So you're probably talking about the 40 developmental assets now that I'm thinking about
I
it.
don't know. I'm not sure what it's called, but it sounded so fascinating. So what are the 40 developmental assets?
So the 40
Good
developmental
segue.
assets, it's a great segue. It's called the Research Institute collects information, and they've decided in the 80s to figure out what's the difference between two children raised in the same home. One becomes successful and one doesn't. And success not being defined as having a lot of money. Success being defined as can keep a stable job, can keep stable relationships, both family and friends and romantic relationships, and feels generally satisfied with themselves. So not that they're rich, not that they're not poor, but that they feel happy with themselves. So one is successful and one isn't. One
doesn't
struggles.
thrive, yeah.
Right, doesn't thrive, is constantly switching jobs, maybe has trouble with drugs and alcohol. What's the difference? So they did a lot of research and they broke it down into only 40 developmental but they're really fascinating. So they're broken down into two parts, internal and external, nurture versus nature. So there's a huge difference, how the nurture being how I interpret the world, and do I interpret my world as caring about me? And nurture being how does my world feel about me? So are they investing time in me?
So with this, is it an assessment that you do with the kids, or is it a training on each of the 40 elements? Or
Well, it's a training on what they are, and our tutors are trained in that, and it's something that we do a training on at least once a year that's open to the public on what are the 40 developmental assets and how do they make a difference. And what's wonderful is you can make a difference in the life of a child simply by being there, by making sure that you connect with them, you look them in the eye, that they know that you know that they're valued. And that's the biggest thing, is making sure that our kids know that we care about them, that we want to make sure that we have a good community for them, that we care that there's things for them to do, that there's adults who want to do those things with them.
speaking of that, that makes me think of you becoming a foster parent, and because that too, right, shows that somebody's there for them and somebody cares. You've had more than one. You mentioned you thought you were going to just do it for a couple of years, and now it's been 9 years later. How many kids have you had?
I don't know.
Lots of them.
There's been lots. There's different reasons kids stay in your home for short periods of time. There's probably about 10 of them that we really stay in a close communication with, and those are my kids. So.
Do you have any at home right now? Any foster kids?
We have 6 at my house right now. 6 altogether.
Yeah.
Altogether.
I'm curious because you have your own kids and you have your foster kids. What's the benefit that the family gains from having other children in the home?
You're never bored.
Ever.
Ever. There's always something to do.
Yeah.
You learn how to communicate. Communication is huge. Huge.
I would imagine to stand up for yourself too. You have to in an environment like that.
Yeah, and you really learn not just how to say your words, but really how to interpret how the other person's taking those words in.
Likewise, what they mean when they say those words to you. It's again that nurture side, right?
And my kids always have a buddy. They always have somebody to go do something with, and vice versa. And I say my kids, but it's all the kids in my house.
Yeah,
if you're my house, you're my kid.
I got that. And for you, if they're there, you're the mom.
Yeah.
You're the mom.
She's also uniquely skilled at working the whole age range, in spite of what she might have said about wanting to start with the babies.
That's interesting.
She works with the older teens tremendously well also.
Well, lot to compliment. We're going to wrap up and take a commercial break to thank our sponsors. So come right back. We'll be back in a minute.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now back to Insights on Leadership in Life with your host, Roberta Pickett.
Hello again. It's Roberta Pickett, your host for Insights on Leadership in Life. And this evening we have Ruthella Turner and John Stettler and Naomi Grimes sharing with us some of their insights about kids and our future and their past. So it's been a little bit of everything. And right now I want to focus on Naomi. Naomi, you... First of all, we know each other from Rotary. We were in Rotary together. And one of the things I noticed about Naomi right from the first time I met her was how cheerful you are. You always seem to be in such a good mood, have such a positive attitude about things, and you're so giving. You're such a caring, giving person. And that's what came across to me and made me want to say, come be part of Rotary. But have you always been like that?
Always, since I was as little as I can remember.
It's just in your nature. That's beautiful. That's really wonderful. And so you said you were been in foster care, though, since you were 1 year old, with many different foster parents. Wow. That, can you share a little bit of what that was like for you?
Yeah. First off, a lot of people, the first question they ask when they hear that is, why? And
why were you in it, or why so many?
So many, yeah. That's the first question people ask, and they are curious, well, was she disruptive? And this is the best way I describe it. I was the total opposite of disruptive. I was very quiet. I would barely speak. You wouldn't guess that these days. I barely spoke.
You make up for it.
Yeah, I made up for lost time, but the way it works, and I know it's a challenge for social services and social workers, but when you have a certain amount of foster homes in a certain area, sometimes I call it like a game of chess. You are a social worker, you're in your office, you get a phone call from foster parent, Ruthella may know how this is, and you have a disruptive child that the foster parent has asked social services, please remove from my home, this is just not working out. So social worker looks at the whole dynamics and says, okay, well, we need to remove this child from this home. Let's try and make it work at this home. But in order to do this, because foster parents only license for so many children, and so in order to move this child from this home, we need to remove a child from this home and move it. So that's why I say it's like a game of chess.
Yeah.
Well, I was the easiest one to move around because they know there'd be no issue. We can move Naomi, no problem. And
that
that
breaks
was easy.
my heart, though, too, to think about. I mean,
And just to give you a picture, the way it would happen is, and it always happened after school. I'd come off the bus, and I remember with my backpack walking, and there's usually more than one. It wasn't just one foster child. We had foster sisters. I never lived with foster boys. It was always foster girls. So we would get off the bus, and we'd see the county car in front of our foster home,
You
and
knew
we
somebody
were
was there.
curious. We were like, which one of us is it today? And so you would walk in, and they would say, so today you need to move, and it would be that moment. So they would.
So they do it like that, too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we
Wow.
would grab basically a garbage bag, throw our stuff. Never a lot of stuff.
That has got to be one of the images that people need to remember.
Yeah.
They are not taking their Gucci suitcases along with them.
No.
They put their stuff in a
It was
garbage
always a black
bag and
garbage
move.
bag.
It
Yeah.
was horrible.
Yeah, it was always a black garbage bag, so I
Well,
would
and
just throw my clothes.
It's
and,
horrible to think, too, that it's so immediate that there's no chance for transition in your head or your...
No.
And maybe on some level that makes it easier, but I don't know. It's like, oh...
No, it's a challenge.
very
It's
painful.
emotionally a challenge as a child, but it's just like anything else. You kind of get used to it. So it's not a surprise anymore. So you bag up your stuff and you get in the back of the county car and you drive and you're curious, where's my new home, and so you get to the new home and, this is your mom and dad. And you're like, well, you're not really my mom and dad, but okay, mom and dad. And, and that's how it was.
Do most foster parents ask you to call them mom and dad, or just more the
You as a child want that. You want to call them mom and dad, but the social worker would always say, here's your new mom and dad,
Yeah.
But, so that's how it would happen in those years, and that's why I was in so many homes.
That makes sense. You were such a good girl.
It was very easy.
Yeah.
I never complained.
What was the most important thing for you growing up?
Honestly, every foster home I went to, I wanted to make sure I was on the swim team. I wanted to swim. That's all I cared about.
That was the consistency.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And as I got
Interesting.
older, I made sure, and I got very smart. I figured out my own way because I knew foster parents couldn't always handle it. So I would go to the swim team meetings and find someone else's parents or that lived nearby, and can you pick me up for swim team and for our meets? And that was my most thing that was important to me.
So in some ways, that all the change made you strong. For you, it that doesn't happen with all kids, but for you, it gave you a strength and a fortitude and a persistence to pursue what was important to you.
Yeah, and the reason why this is important about swimming is when you are a foster child, Ruthella knows as a foster parent, and as a CASA worker, and like you mentioned, we want to feel accomplished. We want to feel that we are meaning something. So when I was on swim team, my biggest thing was first place. I wanted to be first place because I wanted that ribbon.
Yeah, I can understand
and so
that.
I would, that was important to me to give me self-worth. The most challenging thing, though, that I just remembered is when you don't know who your real parents are, is going everywhere and wondering and looking at women.
Oh.
And what's funny? I never thought about my dad. It was always my mom. I would be in stores and always look at women who had brown hair, brown eyes, and I would be wondering, is that my mother? I wonder if that's my mom, because I knew she was in the same area, So that was just a challenge.
Yeah.
So.
Where did you learn the values you live by now? Again, you seem so well adjusted, and I don't mean that lightly at all. I mean it very sincerely. With all that change and disruption in your life, you seem to have such beautiful values.
I have to be honest, I was in a certain age, around age 6, I was in Moraga, and I lived with a certain home that I was supposed to have been adopted. I unfortunately did not get adopted by them because the county felt that they were too strict. When I'm thinking, man, that's the best thing for a child. But anyways, they did a good job. I'm not in touch with them anymore, but this is going to sound funny, but what it was watching certain TV. I watched Anne of Green Gables. Oh. My favorite movie is on Golden Pond. And I was very young. I never watched cartoons. I didn't hear rap music. I listened to only classical at, age 6, 7, 8, because I was there for a couple years. And that always stuck with me, watching those, Anne of Green Gables movies.
They're so wholesome.
Yeah, and honestly,
good lessons.
And honestly, those movies.
And wasn't she a foster child?
Yes, Anne
too?
of Green Gables. Yeah. And I watched shows like that and movies like that, and I was very sheltered during that age period. And I honestly think that's what helped me. Little House on the Prairie was my favorite show.
I think those shows helped a lot of us growing
Yeah.
up. Did you have a role model, or more than one, growing up?
Yeah, all the role models were everybody around me. I watched everybody, whether it be at school, I could be at a doctor's office, I could be at a restaurant, and I watched everybody's behavior, and I just watched and learned. So everybody in my surroundings was my role model, and I would always pay attention to people. That was my biggest thing.
Well, what that tells me is that you watched to see both the good and the bad.
And I learned.
And you made a choice of which direction to go. Yeah. Wow. So you have children now. You have twins.
And I have a daughter.
And a daughter. So 2 boys and a girl?
And a girl, yeah.
Oh, so how are you incorporating the lessons you learned into things that you want them to learn?
It's love every day.
Oh.
It's love every day. It's communicating.
You're going to make me cry just saying that.
It's talking. I mean, it's one thing, and my children are not, we don't argue with each other. It's you love your brother, you love your sister, and it's unconditional love, and that's what I tell them no matter what. And I still try and cuddle with them. Even though they're 8, they're boys, and
hey,
they're getting to that age. And I always ask them, when you're 18, can we still cuddle? Because, please.
The cool part is they'll put their arms around you rather than you putting your arms around them.
So, the biggest thing is just love and knowing that no matter what, they are accepted. Wow. And no matter what, and I teach them about choices.
Yeah.
I really instill in them about choices and the choices that they make. Think about everything you do before you do it.
Choice it's one of my topics that I am, because it's one of the biggest gifts we've been given as human beings, but it's also, because it's powerful, it can go either way. And so you're right, to give them love and to teach them about choices, what a powerful thing. What about, we only have a few minutes left here, so what about kids in general, life in general? How do we ensure that our future going forward is good for our kids and our kids' kids and our grandkids' kids? See, she got you too.
There's 3 things that I've learned that are important no matter what relationship, mother, daughter, friend, father, son, it doesn't matter, but there's 3 things that you have to really focus on, and that's love, acceptance, and forgiveness.
Beautiful.
So.
My word is a connection. You have to feel connected with somebody, with something, and the connection needs to have all the qualities that you're talking about. If you don't feel like you belong, you are rudderless in your life. And the need to belong can send you in all the wrong places. It can also send you in all the right places. And that's where the choice making is so important.
Absolutely. Well, Ruthella Turner, John Stettler, Naomi Grimes, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us this evening on Insights and Leadership in Life. I blew it.